Hello there, everybody. Welcome along to the Odds Now EFL betting show with me, Gab Sutton, and with Matt Hill, who's normally the host of this. We've had some technical challenges that we've overcome them, so we're putting this out on my account. Matt, good to see you. Not a great time for Carlisle United right now, but looking forward to getting into some tips for the weekend.
Yes, certainly, yeah. And I haven't learned my lesson from previous weeks. I have included Carlisle's game in my selections, but we'll come on to that later in the piece. Yeah, Gab, great to be on here. Obviously, we used to do this show live on Twitter. Then we encountered some technical problems with the Odds Now StreamYard account, which is still unresolved. We've been residing on YouTube, haven't we, for the last couple of months. So hello to any new viewers, I suppose. What we do here on the EFL Betting Show, it's very simple, really. Myself and Gab, we'll take 3 picks each from across the Championship, League One and League Two. And we'll just drill down on those respective games in a little bit more detail and hopefully unearth a few winners. Probably you should start by reflecting on last week, although we won't dwell on it, Gab, because it was a rare blank for yourself. Didn't have too much luck there. I managed to break even thanks to Peterborough, who got the better of Charlton in emphatic fashion at 2-1, but no luck with my other 2 selections. So, yeah, not our best week, I think it's fair to say.
You broke even with that, though, Matt, which is not too bad. I think a lot of people weren't sure. I think I spoke to other people who would have probably gone with Charlton because of their form. So that was a good shot, and so that's kind of cancelled the others out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have quite often operate at either, putting up sort of 2-1 chances on this show, and I know if I can get one of them up, then I'll kind of have my stake back. So, but I've gone for a little bit of variety this week. Not as much as you, mate. Looking at your selection, you've got an absolute swinger in there in League Two. But yeah, best to stay tuned for that one. We'll kick off with the Championship, where we've got 1 pick each. Gab, I don't know if you want to go in first this week, but you've gone for Portsmouth. They've been quite a regular selection of yours this season, with I would say with good success without having the numbers to hand. Talk us through this one, because it's a home game for them, where traditionally we've considered them to be a very strong proposition this year.
Yeah, I think that makes sense in the numbers, because since the 9th of November, when they beat Preston North End 3-1, they've had 9 home wins, 2 draws. I think they drew with Sunderland and Burnley at Fratton Park, and they lost to Millwall and to Plymouth Argyle in a bit of a smash and grab. So that's 13 games and 9 home wins. So the maths make sense from their last 13 home games. But also just generally, you feel like, if I say to you as a football fan, Matt, you've got Portsmouth at home or you're going to Fratton Park, they feel like very different propositions, don't you? Don't they? So I think that's the interesting thing, and I think that's one of the reasons why I would feel like Portsmouth, with their home form, can be a massive strength for them in this game. They've got one of the form wide men in the league in Murphy, Josh Murphy out on the left. They've got Colby Bishop, who, since he returned, their form steadily improved, and it's been one of the big reasons why they've gone from prime relegation candidates to in the more comfortable position of 17th. So yeah, I'm happy to go with Portsmouth against a Blackburn Rovers side that haven't responded very well to losing manager John Eustace. 7 points taken from their last 8 games.
Yeah, and I think it's going to become a recurring theme as we come into these closing weeks of the season. You've either got teams that have got a lot to play for, or teams whose season are maybe just wilting out a little bit. And definitely would have Blackburn in that category, given the recent form. Playoffs are long gone, I think, unfortunately, having looked promising for a large period of this season. And they might already have one eye on this season. Gab, I have this theory, and I'm probably going to come on to it a little bit later on, actually, where when a team doesn't have a lot to play for, it can go one of 2 ways. It can kind of free the shackles off for teams to really start enjoying themselves and playing without a weight of expectation or pressure. Or maybe in Blackburn's case, it just becomes one of those frustrating campaigns where you've already got one eye on next season. Is that how you read it with Blackburn?
I'm a big believer, Matt, that once you get to this stage of the season, you've got to flip how you look at things. I think we've probably talked about this on the podcast before, that for 2/3 of the season, you look at it and go, if you're a mid-table side, you're better than a relegation candidate, and therefore the mid-table side's likelier to win. I think once you get into the last third of the season, I think it's actually flipped. I think the relegation side's got more at stake than the mid-table side. Now, Blackburn still technically have an outside shot of the playoffs, but then their form suggests they're kind of meandering down to mid-table, which is still a better season than was expected for them beforehand.
True.
But there have been question marks levelled at key figures at the club, like the Venkeys, like Steve Waggett, like Rudiger Stead, even the sporting director. And so the fans aren't happy at the moment, whereas Portsmouth are actually very, very much galvanised as a club. So I actually think they're two clubs and teams going in different directions, both on the pitch this season and both possibly in the long-term trajectory as well. So 13-10 about Portsmouth, I'm very happy with that.
Yeah, that's very fair price for Portsmouth at home, and you've made that case well on a couple of occasions with success. So hopefully that continues. Well, in the Championship for me, I'm going to be playing something I haven't played that much this season, an Asian handicap bet, which I think for a novice bettor, it can be a little bit overwhelming sometimes when you're dealing with.
Matt, can I give you a shocking declaration?
You can.
I've no idea how Asian handicaps work, and I've been in the football betting industry for 11 years. That
confirms my suspicions, really. I think people do have this kind of fear of them and just sort of, okay, I've heard of them, but I don't really know what they are. I'm not going to bother with them. But they can be a really, really effective tool used correctly. And what it does, basically, it drills down your basic handicap, which is, a team getting a 1-goal start or whatever. You also have to have the factors of half goals, quarter goals, 3/4 goals. And for a football fan who only deals in full goals, that's probably a little bit of an overwhelming concept. But
I'm one of the rare breeds, Matt.
Yeah, exactly. So I wouldn't fault anyone that's never really dabbled in Asian handicaps, but they can be a really effective tool because effectively what they do is they give you another option where, for example, here I'm playing a quarter handicap. And what that would mean is that if your team wins, you win as normal. If your team loses, you lose as normal. But if you get the draw, you get a half win. So half of your stake is refunded, half of it is classed as a winner. And it can be really useful. It does reduce the win price, obviously, but when you have a game where you fancy a team, but you may be worried a little bit about the draw, you can still make the draw a profitable selection using the quarter Asian handicap. And I really would urge anybody who likes a bet to go away and have a little read on how Asian handicaps work, because often people that go to put a bet on a team to win, they have a hunch that this team is going to outperform what the market expects them to do. And what this is doing is actually just drilling down, and you might not actually need your big outsider to go and win. Even just getting a draw or only losing by 1 using an Asian handicap, you can make that profitable. And on the other side of the coin, you can reduce the risk as well. So if you want half of your stake returned because you're not absolutely confident, it's a very common practice for people who bet on a more serious level where they want to manage their risk. So, it's maybe not something that's on everybody's radar as recreational bettors, but definitely something I would urge you to go and have a look into. As I mentioned here, it's a plus 2.25, easy for me to say, handicap I'll be going for here for West Brom, who are away at Norwich. The reason that I want to get with West Brom here, I just think that since Tony Mowbray's come in, it took him a little bit of time to sort of get his feet back under the table at the Hawthorns and work out what he had. And obviously, he's missing some key players as well. Josh Madger, I think, is out until at least the playoffs, I was reading this week. So he's had to find a way of working with the tools he's got. I think Adam Armstrong's been a big signing for them. A very different type of forward to Madger, of course, but brings a lot at championship level with his link-up play as well as his goals. So I think Mowbray is now starting to get a real tune out of West Brom. If you look at their 3 losses in his first 6 in charge, but I think they're now on a 6-game unbeaten run. And 5 of the last matches they've all gone under 2.5 goals. So there's a clear way of playing here, isn't there? He's trying to get it in the realms of fine margins, trusting the experience within his squad to kind of grind out results. And what I've been particularly interested by is their away performances. The last 3 away games have all been 1-1 draws, but when you look at where they've actually been going to, they've got a 1-1 draw at the Den against Millwall, a 1-1 draw at Ellen Road against Leeds, and a 1-1 draw against Burnley at Turf Moor. They're really, really good results, to be honest. They're as good as victories against many of the other championship sides for my money. So I'm really happy with where West Brom are at the moment under Tony Mowbray. They're occupying that last playoff place at the moment, and I would find it hard to see them not getting into the playoffs, actually. I think they're grinding out enough results to just keep ticking along at that kind of rate that you need to sneak into the playoffs. Whether they quite have enough to go up, that's another question, but the main objective is just to get in there, really, isn't it? And then see how the playoff lottery treats you, I suppose. But Norwich, for a long part of this season, would have considered themselves firmly playoff candidates themselves, but they've just struggled for consistency, haven't they, all season, Norwich? There's been some really good, strong performances from them, but then also at times some underwhelming results, and they're having a really tough time of it at the moment, seeing their season, potentially, like we say, with Blackburn, evaporate a little bit in front of their eyes, and winless in 4 now, some really frustrating drop points. And I think Johan Storup, he said this week he still thinks his side can finish in the top 6, opt to give them a 1% chance of doing so. So how much you believe that, and whether he's just saying that to sort of keep his players focused or attempt to, I don't know. But I think damaging results, obviously, they blew a 2-0 lead against Sheffield Wednesday recently, didn't they? At home, lost to Bristol City, some disappointing draws with Blackburn and Oxford. So I just worry about Norwich as one of these sides where the season maybe will just peter out a little bit. And I also thought it was interesting in Thorup's comments as well that in the international break, he's been spending time in America with the club's majority shareholders and talking about long-term strategy. And he referenced, how the owners understand what it takes to build a project over several years. And for me, that's not really mirroring up with his comments about, I still think we can get in the playoffs this season. To me, it's already maybe a bit of okay, this season's gone. Where are we going now? We might see a little bit of trying of different systems, working out whether players are going to stay on in these closing weeks. Whereas I feel West Brom, they've got a lot more to play for. There's a lot more belief. And Tony Mowbray is really doing a good job of grinding results out here. So, like I say, the plus 2.5, the plus 0.25 handicap, again, easy for me to say, with West Brom. What that's going to do for this bet, you're getting just around even money as your price. If West Brom lose, it's a losing bet. If they win, you double your money. If it's a draw, half of my stake is returned and half of it doubles. So it's a profit for a win or a draw. And that's exactly how I want to play it. West Brom, as I say, they have been picking up a lot of draws under Mowbray, but I do just have a feeling they might have enough to exploit this Norwich side with the added reassurance that if they do draw, I'll still be making a profit. So that's how I'm playing that one.
Yeah, I think for Norwich City, I am actually really excited about their long-term future, and I've definitely, to give you a bit of an early shout, that they're one that I've got kind of penciled in as possible consideration for my anti-post
I can see that
next season. Yeah, so I'm really excited about it. I think they've got a young squad that's definitely growing, and I think they're going to get better. But I can also see the point of view that they are a number of points away from the playoffs at the moment, and that seems to be, the form doesn't really suggest them catapulting themselves in there. I think there'll be a tinge of disappointment that having had arguably the best striker in the Championship this season, having had the top scorer as things stand in,
and will they have him next season, Gab? Are they going to have him next season?
It's a big question, yeah. And can they reinvest some of that money if they can get the right fee for them? So some big questions, I think, over Norwich City. But I think with West Bromwich Albion, they've got some very good top-end Championship players. Like you mentioned, Adam Armstrong there. I'm a big fan of Mickey Johnston on the left wing. I think he brings a lot of flair to them. I think they've got a pretty strong midfield as well. So, and I think they can score goals. I think they can create a lot of chances under Tony Mowbray as well. They've shown performances like the one at Elland Road, where they're one of the few teams to stop Leeds from winning there. They got a 1-1 draw and they really took the game to Leeds. So this is a team that can create chances no matter who the opposition, and I think they'll do it at Carrow Road.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. So hearing some agreement there, I think, in your tone. So we'll take that one. Well, that does us for the Championship. We'll move into League One, Gab, where Northampton, they're becoming friends of yours, aren't they? I think you really do enjoy the way that they're operating under Kevin Nolan. They couldn't do you a good turn last week, but they have in previous weeks. You're reinvesting the faith again. They go to Cambridge this weekend, who are fighting for their lives under Neil Harris. But you quite fancy Northampton to get something here?
Yeah, I think for me, the draw no bet is the place that I would look to for the equivalent of your sort of Asian handicap, really, because I like that bit of insurance for some of my picks. So I think draw no bets and double chances are good when the team that you fancy is away from home, where there's that bit more jeopardy, I guess. But I was actually surprised that Cambridge United were priced up as favourites. And I couldn't really see it because, yes, I was a bit sweet on Cambridge for the first couple of games after Neil Harris came in and Mark Bonner returned. But the results since then have made it clear that they're going to be plying their trade in League Two next season. Whereas for Northampton Town, they've still got some work to do to keep Button Albion at arm's length. So, and yeah, okay, it was a disappointing result last time out against Blackpool. So they've got a bit of a setback. It wasn't a great performance against them. But on the whole, I think their form's been pretty solid under Kevin Nolan. And again, I'm not sure I really see them losing at the Abbey. So I think they're going to get a result there and maybe grab all 3 points that would haul them a hell of a step closer to safety.
Yeah, with Cambridge, it's been a little bit disappointing, hasn't it? When you get that early impact from Harris, and I think we both felt like that appointment gave them a chance of survival. The biggest disappointment for me with Cambridge has been the lack of chance creation. When I look at their XG numbers, they've created under a goal's worth of XG in 7 of their last 8 games, and that's just not going to get you anywhere near getting enough points to sort of, that great escape that they were dreaming of when Harris returned. Yeah, I find it hard to fault because if you're struggling to create a goal's worth of XG in a game, Northampton probably not the side you want to be trying to break down, because we've spoke about it at length, haven't we? Kevin Nolan has instilled this really solid defensive foundation. Yeah, I guess it's just a case of whether Northampton can create enough to breach them. But again, clean sheets not have been a common theme for Cambridge either. I think they've had 1 in their last 6. So yeah, it's. I'm finding it hard to argue with that pick, Gab. Northampton, it's very hard to say, obviously, with a busy transfer window ahead and stuff like that. But do you think this confidence that you have in them will instill into next season? Or do you think it's one of those where you need to see what's done in the summer?
Let's see what's done in the summer. I think it's been a difficult season for Northampton because the group that won them promotion and won them mid-table in their first season up has sort of broken up a little bit. So now we're reaching the point where they're really going to live or die by their recruitment. But I am very excited about Max Dyche, a bit of a chip off the old block as well. So he's very strong in terms of putting his head in where it hurts as well. So I think he's a centre back that I've got my eye on, and one of the reasons why I think they might get all 3 points. I think they've upgraded their midfield as well in January with some of their additions too. So I think that's helped them get a bit more quality on the ball in central midfield. And I do think they've got players going forward who can hurt teams. So, yeah, I think Northampton, again, a little bit underrated for me by the traders, especially in context of a Cambridge side that look dead and buried.
Okay, well, I wish you the best of luck with that one. My League One selection comes from what I think is possibly the most interesting game of the weekend in League One. Reading at home to Peterborough. And I mentioned Peterborough doing me a good turn last week. Put them up against high-flying Charlton, and they did oblige with an emphatic 3-0 home win. Although I think if you dig into the stats, they were lucky to keep a clean sheet. Charlton had plenty of chance in that game. It was kind of what we associate with Peterborough over the years, like a little bit of an end-to-end, very open and entertaining affair. And I think although Posh have got nothing left really to play for this season other than their EFL Trophy final with Birmingham, I do think they're one of these teams again where, converse to what I said about Norwich, I think Peterborough, with the shackles off, they could be a really dangerous prospect for any team that kind of needs a result here. Reading are themselves, they're having a great season out there, particularly in the circumstances that's going on around the club and continue to go on, more turmoil off the pitch. But yeah, they hired Noel Hunt in December. There's some pretty lofty quotes bandied about at the time as well. We think he's one of the best young coaches in football, and we have real faith in him to take the club forward. And do you know what? He's doing them proud, isn't he? 10-game unbeaten run. Probably a few too many draws in that unbeaten run for his liking, I think. But one thing, they are, they're very, very tough nut to crack, aren't they? I think they'll be disappointed with the draws, particularly against the likes of, Exeter, Shrewsbury. And they drew last time out at home to Stevenage in a game where I think Stevenage were the better side. So I think that 10-game unbeaten run, it maybe flatters them a touch. But I do think they're a very decent outfit under Noel Hunt. And it's going to be interesting to see how their season pans out. As I say, important game for Reading, a lot on the line. And I don't think you want to be playing Peterborough when there's a lot on the line, because they're just such a chaotic and capable side when they're at their best. And they are at their free-flowing best at the moment. I saw Nathan Jones after the game against Charlton hail their front four as the best in the league, which is quite a big claim when you think about the likes of Birmingham and co. But I don't think it's a totally ridiculous comment. It's 4 young players who, when they're playing with the confidence that I talk about, very, very dangerous, all have their own attacking threats and seem to work so well together with the two midfielders behind them, really linking things together nicely at the moment. And like I say, I keep going back to this youthfulness and the confidence. I do think Peterborough are a team who, when they get their tails up, they are very, very dangerous. Now, the goals angle here, it's a little bit ambitious. I'm going to back over 3.5 goals in this game at 7-4. That has not landed in any of Reading's 10-game unbeaten run. So I'm definitely going against market trend here. But I think because of that low scoring run that we've seen with Reading, we're getting a juicier price than normal here. I mean, there's not many Peterborough games that would be floating around this mark for a goal line. So I'm willing to take a chance here that Peterborough can disrupt the flow of Reading. I read Noel Hunt's pre-match comments as well. He had a lot of respect for Peterborough as well, and sort of backed up Nathan Jones' comments about their forwards and said that, you know, it'll be a different type of challenge to what Reading have been facing recently. Obviously, low blocks against the likes of Shrewsbury and Exeter. There's not going to be any of that from Peterborough. It's going to be end-to-end. And I think we have a really good case in point with their previous meeting in December, which finished 2-1 to Reading, but there was nearly 5 goals worth of XG in that match. It really was a crash-bang-wallop kind of encounter with both teams going hammer and tongs. I think if we get an early goal in this game, it could light the touch paper, because obviously Reading need the result. Peterborough is so dangerous and flying in front of goal right now. I think it has potential to blow up into a really entertaining contest. And that's why I'm going to chance 7-4, about over 3.5 goals in the match. But I do think I need an early goal. If it's 0-0 after 20 minutes, I'll be panicking a little bit. So I don't care who scores. Just give me an early goal, please.
Absolutely. I think Peterborough have been quite a streaky side this season, haven't they? And they had a period sort of around late January, possibly early February, where you're starting to worry about them. That 5-1 loss at Luton, of course, and Darren Ferguson's comments. But since then, the likes of Malik Mothersill, Kwame Poku, who returned in March, and Ricky J. Jones, of course, they've all combined really well. Cian Hayes, of course, looks like he's got some really nice ball carrying ability as well. But then, crucially, you're also looking at the likes of Sam Hughes and Teo Wadern, who have offered a little bit of experience that was maybe much needed in the defensive area. So, I think Peterborough United, again, I think they're on a nice little run at the moment, and I think that this could be a game that confirms both teams, or sort of adds to the likelihood of both teams being in League One again next season.
Yeah, okay. So I'm happy with that. I've not had any sort of. Sometimes Gav gives me a bit of a rebuttal on my picks and says, "Oh, I'm not sure I back that one myself," and that unnerves me sometimes. But we've not had that. We're two in, and we've not had it yet. So that's good signs, isn't it? Well, we'll slip into.
You've got to be very worried about this third pick, Matt.
Oh well, yeah, I know what's coming. League Two we'll slip into. And just a quick word before we go into League Two, that if you are wanting to see a summary of our picks, we'll bring them up on the screen at the end of the show. So no need to be trying to jot them down as we go. We'll recap, and we'll also give our naps, our best bets for this weekend from our respective picks. But yeah, on we go into League Two, Gab, and I talk about my Peterborough shout being an ambitious one, but I think this is a truly ambitious one from yourself. You've gone for the correct score bet. I'm hoping this doesn't land, because it kind of impacts my side, Carlisle, negatively if so. But Morecambe, another team we spoke about on many occasions this season. I think we all know that they're working with resources far lesser than their competitors. They've done so in a spirited fashion. It is starting to look like it may be in vain, and they may face that drop into the basement. But if you're right here with what you say, this could be a result that really re-injects life into their season. You're going to back the correct score, Morecambe 1, Swindon 0, at a massive 10-1 with Bet365. Tell us why.
I think that if Morecambe win, I think there's a very strong chance that it's a 1-0. So that was part of the thinking. The other part of the thinking is I saw them at Port to grab something from that game. For Jaden Stockley and a free kick. I think they limited Port Vale to very little. And then at the start of the second half, they had a bit of a tactical switch where instead of their wingers doing loads of defensive work and keeping a really portly angle a lot more, and it led to this. Because had a cross from Toll, Gwion Edwards headed in, and he They had a shot from Ben Garrity and Villa, and that kind of changed the game. Can barely have, but I think there's given some encouragement that in these games they've got to get back-to-back wins, no question about that, from Swindon on Saturday and Cheltenham on Tuesday to have any sort of chance. But that performance at Vale Park does give me a little bit of just and that they're again side who they've drawn their last 4 games, which kind of confirms from both angles that they're going to be staying in League Two next season. I think they could be on to maybe a bit of a beachy performance there, I say, on the seaside. And that's where I think Morecambe 1-0 win. It'll be mentality at the Mazuma. Yeah, I'm fancying that one at 10-1.
Yeah, Morecambe certainly at a stage of the season where they do need results. And I think Swindon are definitely one of those teams that we talk about on the beach. We're going to be giving On the Beach, the travel agency, a good plug over the next few weeks, aren't we? Because that phrase is going to be used a lot by many people, particularly in the betting scene. But I think Swindon, the work was done, wasn't it? A couple of months ago, they were in a real mess. Ian Holloway came in, he got an instant improvement out of the squad. And they grinded all these results out, which just sort of parachuted them away from danger. And like you say, there was a point where you wondered whether they could nudge themselves into that sort of top half playoff conversation. But I think, like you said, the season has just kind of petered out now. It'll be very much up to Holloway as to how these next weeks go. I think whether he sort of lets his players ease off the gas a little bit with an eye on next season, or whether he sort of starts calling them out if performances drop. But I think from a Morecambe perspective, all you can ask for is winnable home games at this stage of the season. And this is definitely looking like one of them. And I think, a low-scoring encounter for Morecambe always seemed plausible. So for the sheer audacity of putting up a 10-1 pick, Gab, I'm not even going to try and pick holes in it. I'm just going to applaud it and wish you bad luck from a Carlisle perspective. But so anyone that watches the show regularly over on the Odds Now YouTube channel, you know that I have put up Carlisle in a couple of scenarios this season without success. And I'm going to try and make it third time lucky here. It's not necessarily that I fancy them for a result here, but I do think there's a bit of value. I'm going to go for Doncaster and Carlisle, both teams to score, yes, which is even money with Betfred. And it's a big game for Carlisle, just like it is for Morecambe. You don't need me to tell you why. 6 points adrift of safety ahead of tonight. I say tonight because Tranmere are at home to Cheltenham, and that is the team that both Carlisle and Morecambe are primarily chasing down in this battle for survival in the Football League. Tranmere go into the game 6 points ahead of Carlisle, who had a game in hand against MK Dons in midweek, which resulted in a 2-2 draw. I think the feeling among Carlisle fans was that they needed a win there, potentially, but you couldn't really fault the performance level. It was a good game, all 4 goals in the first half. Carlisle falling behind twice and showing great resolve to get back at 1-1 and 2-2. And then in the second half, to be honest, MK Dons were really enjoying the big, nice surface of Brunton Park, zipping it around, kind of in the way that I think many anti-post backers would have hoped they would have all season, really. Dan Crowley having another good evening at Brunton Park, where he just seems to love playing. Shame we couldn't have signed him. But yes, so, I mean, it was a frustrating one to finish 2-2, but equally, I don't think you could fault the performance, and the result was probably fair. There's no doubt Carlisle have a mountain to climb, and they go to a Doncaster side here, chasing automatic promotion still. Carlisle are 11-2 to win this match alone. Doncaster, biggest price 4-7. I think you could make a case for that being a tiny bit big, but I don't really want to be getting with Carlisle just because of the way they defended for, to be honest, the last 2 years. It's very hard to trust them. Both goals against MK Dons were comical ones to concede, really. And they do have a habit of shooting themselves in the foot. But I think one thing you cannot dispute is that Mark Hughes now has got Carlisle performing better from an attacking perspective. Last weekend's 2-1 win over Bromley saw them register over 20 shots in a match for the first time this season. And it really was a dominant display there. And they carried that into midweek against MK Dons again, hitting 14 shots in that match. And these just shot numbers are just way better than what we've seen over the whole course of the season. And it feels like there has been a clear instruction for the forward players to get their shots away and to test the opposition keeper. And I think when you consider the magnitude of this game for Carlisle and the fact that they go into it having taken 4 points from 6, I do believe that they'll go there and give another good account of themselves here against Donny. Now, I just worry about Doncaster a little bit in recent times. They've only taken 2 points from their last 3 games. Nobody seems to want to snatch this automatic promotion third spot in League Two. There's a lot of teams in there with a chance that just keep throwing in rogue results and again shooting themselves in the foot. And I do think when you're at home to bottom of the league and you are chasing automatic promotion, there is a level of expectation there from the home crowd that they're going to do a job on you quite easily. But actually, I think if Carlisle can repeat the performance level of their last 2 games, they will actually make this a decent contest. And I do still worry about ultimately Carlisle's defence and whether they've got enough to actually. I mean, I can't see a world where they shut out Doncaster at the Keepmoor. I just can't. But I definitely do see a world where they can get in amongst the goals as well themselves. Matt Dennis, the centre forward, has got 3 in his last 5 now. Goals from Kadeem Harris and Stephen Wern. So the wide players are starting to chip in with a couple of goals as well. And I think there's enough there in even money. Do I give Carlisle more than a 50% chance of scoring in this game? I do, actually. So while I can't see them keeping a shutout, they're both teams to score at even money. I do think it's worth a chance. I'm not sure it's going to be enough to get them the precious points they need, but I think they'll give a good account of themselves again here.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I definitely think that a game where both teams have to win, like Doncaster have got it's all about wins for them, getting into the automatic spots. So, a draw would be no good to them. Carlisle, a draw no is good to them. So it does point to a high scoring game. So I can see the logic behind both teams to score.
Yeah, and I hope I'm wrong with the result. I mean, I hope we can go and get something there, but it's going to be a tough old assignment. I mean, Carlisle, every game is vital for them, but they do have more winnable encounters with the likes of Accrington and a couple of others, Morecambe, a couple of other strugglers, coming up on the horizon. So they'll be the real 6-pointers, if you will. But hopefully, I think Carlisle, if you offer Carlisle fans the gap staying the same after this weekend, you'd snatch your hand off really with Tranmere with a winnable home game.
I guess that's what you've got to look at. Like, can you try and catch Accrington Stanley? Because it's a 10-point gap, yes, but if you go there and win,
it's 7.
But I suppose with the goal difference, it's more like. So basically, can you win there and also gain 8 points on them in the other 7 games?
I mean, Harrogate is still there in the mix as well on the same. I think from Carlisle's perspective, the objective one has got to be staying in touch with Tranmere, keeping that within reach with 3 or 4 games to go. If they can still be within 6 points or less, they've given themselves a fighting chance. And if you can, in the process, keep chipping away at results, you don't know. One of Accrington or Harrogate, they're quite capable of losing 3 in a row and being dragged into it still. I feel like those 2 teams will probably feel like a couple more wins will be enough for them. But yeah, it's just a case of without sounding like a manager cliche, looking after your own results and hoping you get a bit of luck elsewhere. Now, that is the territory they find themselves in. I think there's a frustration among the fan base that if this change had been made 6 or 8 weeks earlier, they probably wouldn't be in this position because performances have improved. And one thing with Carlisle's lavish spending, they do have some quality in the ranks. And when these players are getting increased confidence, players like Kadeem Harris at this level, really, really are a handful for opposition defences. So I feel like there's enough there for them to go and get a goal at Doncaster. Whether it'll bear fruit with the result, we shall see. But that concludes this week's EFL Betting Show. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you are watching for the first time, please do and go subscribe to the Odds Now YouTube channel where all of this and similar type content lives. So we'd love to have you along. And Gab, I don't know if you could do the honours there. I'm not the host, so I might need you to pull up the banners that are in the bottom of the screen, and I'll just run through my picks for this weekend. So again, I've gone for West Brom on a plus 0.25 Asian handicap, which basically means if they win, I win. If they lose, I lose. And if they draw, I'll get a half profit. So just don't lose. West Brom is basically the crux of that one. Reading versus Peterborough, I've gone for a bit of a goal fest for all the reasons outlined. And then Doncaster Carlisle, I think the evens about both teams scoring, given the magnitude of the game for both sides, it is a fair price. My nap out of the 3, I've already sort of told myself I'm not going to be napping Carlisle anymore this season. So West Brom...
They've been caught napping too often.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, God damn right. West Brom 0.25 Asian handicap is the bet for me, and yeah, I just don't see them losing at Norwich. To be honest, I think they're really, really well drilled, and I think Norwich might have one eye on next season. So that's my angle there. Gab, any thoughts on my picks? Which one would you have your own money on if you had to?
I would have. I think I would probably go with West Brom. I'd go with you on the Asian handicap, just because I back them to get a favourable result at Carrow Road.
Okay, good. That's good reaffirming for that then. Let's bring yours onto the screen now then, Gab. So you've got Portsmouth to beat Blackburn at 13-10. That's available in several bookmakers. Northampton draw no bet at Cambridge, just a shade of odds against it, 26-25, lesser spotted odds those are. And Morecambe to beat Swindon 1-0 is your long shot at 10-1. Which would be your nap there?
Portsmouth to beat Blackburn, definitely.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that price is good, actually. I think they might shorten up a little bit between now and kickoff. Portsmouth at home. Okay, so maybe you want a Portsmouth and a West Brom double if you're looking for some interest this weekend. Well, that concludes us on the EFL betting show this week. Gab, thanks for hosting on your channels. Hopefully we'll resolve our technical issues. You can go and give Odds Now a follow. Odds Now _ on Twitter and Odds Now TV on YouTube. And we'll be back in one shape or form, I'm sure, next Thursday to do it all over again. Next Friday, sorry. Between now and then, have a good week. Happy punting. And we'll see you soon.